on pretty much everywhere online, and thank you ever so much for taking some time out of your day to join me to talk about knitting and sewing and woolly things in general. It has been such a long time since I've been able to come and talk to you. So how have you all been? Have you got lots of knitting done? Have you had any woolly adventures? Have you been to any shows? Have you done any sewing? Have you got any new podcasts to recommend to me? Come over and chat in the Ravelry group, which is called Owl About Yarn. And if you haven't already, introduce yourself, join the group, and we can have a chat and get to know each other, which would be lovely. So it's actually sunny today, 31st of October, Halloween, and it is about the first time in 2 weeks that I've seen the sun, I think. Erin had, well, all the kids had holidays last week from school, and Erin, who's my 4-year-old, brought home the obligatory homework, which means we have homework more than she does, but she had a weather calendar to keep, like a weather diary to keep, and bless her, because it was the most boring weather diary, she's just had to circle the cloud and then draw a picture of a cloud every day through the week. Poor Erin. So she's taken that back in today, but she was highly delighted that she got it all done, but it was an incredibly boring weather week. So yeah, a little bit of sun today. So I'll be getting a little bit of electricity through my solar panels, which is always nice. I've got my electric heater on by my feet, taking advantage of the free electricity. And not quite so many. I have actually had to wear a hat in the house. It's been that chilly. Not so much the last few days, but before that I had about a week and a half where I was wearing hats all the time. Oh, funny story and completely off topic. So I'm going to be telling you in a bit how I've got a couple of trips coming up. And I decided that I would go and have my hair done and have some colour put into it and things before I go away. So I went to the hairdressers the other day to book the appointment, and I was wearing my hat, and I was really cold, so my hat was covering me to about there. You could see maybe the end of my fringe, and that was it. And I got in there and I explained what I wanted them to do, and I said, oh no, I don't need any cut, just maybe a trim, but I want this here and that, I want this colour, and I want this, that and the other. And the hairdresser said, oh, I'll take your hat off. Now, my hair needed washing and it had been under a hat. So I was like, oh, no, you've seen my hair before, it's fine. She said, no, take your hat off. It's all right, I don't mind, take your hat off. I said, oh, no, it needs washing, it's all like clinging to my head and everything. So eventually she managed to persuade me, and I took my hat off and I just went, look, see, it's still the same colour, see, yeah. Put it back on, and she went, oh, I really thought you'd done something stupid to your hair and that's why you're wearing a hat. I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. So, yeah, luckily we laughed about it. But, yeah. So I'm going to have my hair done on Saturday, and that would be a lovely treat for me. And I'll feel all, I don't know, not glamorous, tidy, presentable. I'll feel presentable before I go away. And I might as well just get straight into that. So, last day of October already. I honestly don't know how that's happened. This last couple of months, well, this whole year, life has been throwing a huge spanner in the works. There's been no chance to get into any sort of a routine between things happening with the family. Well, how did it start? So, unexpected stall at Wonderwool, which was a brilliant surprise. That was like awesome. But 3 weeks notice, which left me no time to do anything else but occasionally eat and very occasionally sleep. Then in June, my poor husband had to have his appendix out with no notice at all. Yarningham didn't really put a spanner in the works. The school holidays put a spanner in the works for July and August, and then I was thinking, right, September, kids are going to be back to school. My poor dad had a stroke at the beginning of September, and it was quite strange because when you think of somebody having a stroke, you think of it all happening all in one go, like a collapse, or quite reasonably quickly anyway, you know, just sort of the stroke happening. But Dad's stroke actually happened over a couple of days, and so he lost clarity in his speech first, and then it wasn't until the second day that his leg started dragging. So with his speech, they thought he was just tired, and so the morning, when his speech still hadn't gone right again, they thought, well, we better get him checked out, so booked an appointment to see the family doctor. And then his leg was dragging, so we said, right, we've got to get to the hospital. Got him up to the hospital. By the time we'd sat for a couple of hours waiting to be seen in the hospital and got him through all of the triage and checks and everything, his right arm had gone as well. So it was obvious that this stroke was still happening as we're sitting in casualty and waiting to be seen. So yeah, that was a massive shock. Obviously for him more than for us, but you know, we were all shocked. And I was just really glad that they live in Cardiff now, that they've moved. They moved several years ago to Cardiff, but they used to live 100 miles away up in mid-Wales. That would have been really stressful and worrying, because I wouldn't have been able to be there all the time with the children being here. And so yeah, I was very glad. And also with the hospitals and the stroke rehabilitation unit all being in Cardiff, we've all got it all on our doorstep, so it made it all a lot more straightforward than it could have been. But yeah, so poor Dad, he was in hospital for about 3 weeks or so. I know it was quite a lot of September that he was in hospital. First in the main hospital, and then he was transferred to the rehabilitation unit in another hospital. And then he came home, and he's had some medics visit him at home to do various assessments and treatments and things, and he's doing really well. I did talk about this briefly on Instagram back in September, and thank you to all of you who sent me lovely comments and messages. It was really nice to think that people were thinking about me from around the world, you know, people that you've never even met, but you do care, don't you? You do care when you feel like you know somebody from seeing them on social media all the time and seeing their shop, and yeah. Anyway, so I didn't get into any sort of a routine through September, so that was September gone. And September just went so fast. I don't know, I mean, Erin started full-time school, and it really feels like she's been in school about a week and a half, and she's already had a full half term. It'll be 2 months next week since she started school. Time flies. So October came, and I was a little bit under the weather. Black dog on my shoulder sort of weighed me down a bit through the end of September and the beginning of October. So that's a bit of a roller coaster, and I hate it because it's so unpredictable as to when my mood will dive. And if it was more predictable, you'd be able to manage it better. But it's just something you've got to just cope with as it goes on. But it makes things a little bit more difficult when you're trying to plan, and then you can't if the depression comes back and the anxiety comes back and you start feeling ill again. It's just, ugh. Anyway, let's leave all that behind. So the long and short of it is, no routine. Beyond making sure I'm here to get Erin to school, here for all the kids to come home, and sleeping at some point. So, but I did still manage to go to the Great London Yarn Crawl in September. It was a bit up in the air at one point because it was the week after Dad had his stroke. But they seem to think that they caught it reasonably early. I wish that we could have got him into hospital the day before, and then it might not have affected his movement quite as much as it did. But as it was, he and my mum were very anxious that I should still go. And do you know when you've got parents who don't want you to put themselves out for them and would be upset if you changed your plans for them? And that's what my parents are like. So I scaled the trip back. We scaled it back to one night instead of 2. So it's really only going to be a day and a half. And I went up on the bus at ridiculous o'clock in the morning on the Saturday with Zoe. And I'm really glad that she came on the bus, because it would have been fine, you know, but 3.5 hours on a bus on your own at, God, I don't even know what time it was, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning? Did I leave at 5:30? Zoe, what time did we get that bus? It was really early in the morning, and yeah, it wouldn't have been nice without a friend, but when you've got your best mate sitting next to you, then it makes it much more bearable. You can have a laugh as you're going along. And then we got into London, just about made it to the first stop before the crawl was going to begin, and met up with my other best mate, Ellie, and her gorgeous little boy and her mum, and we all went off. The first stop was the village haberdashery, and I've been sewing for years and years and years, but it's not something that I've done regularly until this last couple of years, when I started sewing more for the shop, so the project bags and spindle bags and things like that, and that sort of made me think a bit more about garment sewing and things like that. So I thought, I'm going to treat myself, because when I picked the route, Zoe and Ellie let me pick the route, and when I picked the route, I picked one with 2 fabric shops, and I thought, I'm going to treat myself, because my yarn stash is so big, I'm going to get some fabric. And the village haberdashery were cunning in that they didn't put prices on things, which made us maybe spend a little bit less than we might have done in the second shop. But I did get some really nice fabric, so I brought it to show you. This is going to be all over the place. I haven't got set sections for acquisitions and all of that. It's just all together. So I decided to buy fabric to make myself a couple of blouses, because I really enjoy wearing button-up shirts. And I've got a pattern, and I'm actually working on a wearable toile, which I will show you a little bit later on. But I bought these fabrics, but they're a little bit more pricey than the one that I'm making the wearable toile in. So I want to make that first and make sure the pattern's right. And there are a couple of adjustments that I'm going to need to make, but I'll talk through them a bit later. So I got this one. That's actually quite good on the colour front. And it looks like linen, but it's actually 100% cotton. And it's nice and soft. And I just thought it's a lovely, solid coloured one, and that will go with lots of the sort of colours that I wear, because purples and blues and greens and that, and the pink will go with that all really nicely. And then because it's me and I love my mad colours and my mad prints and things, I thought this was a bit me as well. And it's the range is Brushstrokes by Holly de Groot, and that's, I think it's 100% cotton. Probably says 100% certified organic cotton, it says on the selvage. So I think that's going to make a really fun blouse. So I'm quite looking forward to making these and wearing them through the winter with my jumpers and things. And I think I can carry that off. Don't you think? Do you think? But yeah, so I've got a really nice pattern, which I should have brought to show you, because I've got my work in progress. Never mind, I'll show you next time. And it's just a basic long sleeved shirt with collar, cuffs, button band down the front. Quite versatile. So bought those, and then we went to Ray Stitch, which wasn't very far. I made some notes, that's why I'm looking down, because this is quite a long time ago. Oh, the pink cotton is Manchester Yarn Dyes by Robert Kaufman, and it's in violet. even though it's pink, it's called violet. I suppose you get some pink violets, don't you? So maybe that's what he was thinking of. But yeah, raised stitch. I was really tempted by some cotton chambray, but I have got at least 3 dress lengths of fabric already, so I decided that I would skip that. But they do sell online, so if I manage to make those dresses up and I'm still thinking about that fabric, then I'll be able to go back and get myself some at a later date. But I really enjoyed those. I think that Ray Stitch might have been the shop where I saw the lovely needle cord fabrics as well, because I made Erin a little dress, you might remember last year, a little pinafore dress out of blue embroidered needle cord, and it was just such a lovely autumn dress for her. So I was very tempted by the needle cord as well, but I resisted, having spent quite a lot of money in the village haberdashery. And I wasn't the only one. If you haven't already seen it, go and watch Zoe's podcast, Pins and Needles, where she talks about the yarn crawl, and you'll see I wasn't the only one that spent money. And if Ellie had a podcast, you'd be able to see that the 3 of us went really quite doolally-tap over fabric. But yeah, so after Ray Stitch, our third stop was Loop, and I wasn't really tempted by anything. I don't know why. Maybe I feel that my stash is big enough. I do sometimes feel that I'm buying souvenir yarn rather than yarn for a project, because I haven't been knitting quite so much this last year or so. I think maybe with my business growing, I don't have quite so much time, because I'm spending more time on the business rather than on my own crafting. And also I think that the making that I do in the business kind of satisfies quite a lot of my need to craft. So projects are taking a lot longer to come off the needles. I have noticed that with my knitting. But I don't think I bought anything in Loop. Oh, I bought a knitting stitch dictionary. That was right, I bought a book. So I didn't buy any wool, but I did buy a book. I don't know, I thought maybe the range of variegated yarns wasn't quite as large maybe in Loop this time. Or maybe it's just that it was all new to me when I went 3 years ago, whenever the first yarn crawl was. And then this time I'd seen more yarns around, been to more yarn shows, and so it wasn't sort of so fresh. I don't know. Anyway, last stop was Knit with Attitude, and that was the first stop on the first yarn crawl that we went on. And they've definitely increased their selection of yarns, and they've got more indie yarns and things like that now. I know that Zoe was looking forward to it because she wanted to buy a skein of hedgehog yarns. Hedgehog, you know who I mean. The really nice ones. I've got a skein of it upstairs. That's really going to bother me now. Anyway, she wanted a skein and she knew that they sold it, so she was looking forward to being there. And I did actually... What have I done with the bag? Hang on. I did buy some yarn there because I saw the colourway. I'll get these out now as well. I saw the colourway and I couldn't resist. And it's Manos del Uruguay Alegria. 75% superwash merino, 25% polyamide, colour A9741. And it's a fingering weight. But I just loved the purple and lilac and brown all together, which is going to make something really nice for me. It's not going to be socks. I'm a bit socked out. It'll be maybe a cowl. Do you think that would look nice? I think it would. It'll go with my new hair. Wait till you see it. It's going to be amazing. Anyway, that and it's so lovely and squashy as well. Merino softness. Love merino, love merino. So that was my purchase at Knit with Attitude. And then we went on to the after party, and it was really nice. It was less crowded than the first one. So the first one was upstairs in a pub somewhere in London. Oh man, it wasn't too far from Waterloo Station, I remember that. And it was quite crowded in, and everybody was shattered, and it just felt quite claustrophobic. It was still brilliant, it was still a brilliant time, don't get me wrong, but this one there was much more space. We'd got almost the whole pub to ourselves, and we all were able to relax, and we were able to get Ellie's baby William out of the sling and let him have a bit of a bounce. And lovely Linda from Cal Yarn Company was there, and she'd got a pop-up shop with her yarns, so I did treat myself to a skein of hers, because this is my other favourite colour, and that's not coming out at all. It's much greenier teal than that. Is there any way, no, it's not really showing at all. It's a beautiful, it's the green end of teal and turquoise and that, and it's Islington, which is Blueface Leicester and silk. And I know this base, I've used this base before, and it's lovely. Really nice. And it doesn't have a colour name on it, but it's this lovely, beautiful, greeny teal colour. And I don't know what that's going to be yet either, but it was just, I think she had one of these left, and then nothing quite like it. And it just kept on looking at me across the room. And I kept looking at it and looking away and looking at it and looking away. I was kind of flirting with it. And in the end, I thought, no, I can't leave it. So I just went over and I said, that one has to be mine. I'm sorry, that one has to be mine. It just has to be mine. So I had that. And then, to top it off, as well as the goodie bag, which I haven't brought to show you because all the component parts are all over everywhere and the stitch marker's being used and the mini skeins have gone in the mini skein bag and everything's everywhere else. Maria gave me a project bag. It's beautiful, and I've been saving it. I haven't used it because I was determined to show you before I started using it. So I just got to pop a drawstring in and then I'll be able to use it. But look, isn't it lovely? Lovely suns on gold fabric, and I don't know if you'll be able, oh yes, oh look at that, the sunshine's caught it, lovely. So lovely shiny gold accents on the fabric. So thank you again ever so much, Maria, and I have to decide which project I'm going to put into that now. But I think I'll probably take it with me when I go on my travels next month. So that was my yarn crawl. Came home from the yarn crawl, absolutely knackered, obviously. It was a long day. So we chose one of the 4-stop routes, and maybe 3 shops would have been enough. But it was really, really good fun. It was a rainy day. It was one of those miserly days where it just sort of, it doesn't seem to rain properly. It just sort of is in the air. So it's just, oh, we were all just soaked. It was, that wasn't a happy part of the day. But what was lovely was, as I said, Ellie brought her little baby boy, and we all took turns carrying him, and that was so lovely because I carried Erin everywhere when she was a baby. I did it with the boys as well, but not quite as much because the slings weren't so good back 12-15 years ago when I had the boys. But I had lovely slings with Erin, and I used to carry her everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So that was really nice being able to carry a baby around again for a little while. And it gave Ellie a bit of a chance to rest and stretch her back out and stuff as well, so that was good. And obviously so much easier for getting on and off London transport if you've got a baby in a sling rather than taking a pushchair. So I was quite glad we chose that way around, because it would have been so awkward trying to get on the bus that we got on, and on the tube, and yeah, it would just have been very awkward. But he was good as gold. He flirted with everybody, he smiled, he slept loads. He was just so good. He was a perfect baby, perfect gentleman. So he's obviously being very well brought up from a very young age. But yeah, so we all had a lovely day. We were all absolutely shattered the next day, but you know, that's the price you pay for having a lovely long full day of rushing around all the wool shops and fabric shops. But yeah, and it was really lovely to see Ali and Rachel, who run the Yarn Crawl, who are Ali Dex and Porpoise Fur on social media, and they also have the Yarn in the City podcast. It was lovely to say hello to them, because they'd been kind enough to let me put some samples in the goodie bags. So I just went up to say hello and to say thank you for letting me do that, and also because I'm going to be seeing them next month in one of the places that I'm going to be travelling to. So I thought it would be nice to sort of put faces to the names and get to know them a little bit more, you know. So that was lovely. And then it was just back to normal everyday life, really. And then at the beginning of October, I had the West Wales Wool Show, which was in Narberth in Pembrokeshire. And that was a new one to me. I'd not been to it before, but I applied for it earlier in the year and I got a stall. So Ben, my younger son, my 12-year-old, agreed to come with me for the day, and we drove down very early in the morning and set up, and it was lovely. We were very well looked after. We were in the Plas Hyfryd Hotel in Narberth, and they'd got a menu, sort of discount menu for lunches for the day, and they served us at the stall, which was really nice. And there were some lovely things in the hall with me. Triskelion yarns were in that same venue, and oh man, I can't remember the name of the store next to Triskelion Yarns, and that's terrible. I can see it. You know, my memory has got so bad this last few months. But anyway, I met them, they were lovely, and I'll put them somewhere, show notes or underneath or something. But yeah, it was a really nice event, much busier than I'd expected it to be, because I thought it would be quite a sedate show. Obviously, Wonderwool Wales is really busy and really big. Yarningham was extremely busy, but then kind of expected that because Birmingham's so easy to get to. And then Narberth in Pembrokeshire, I expected it to be quieter because it's a bit further away from most places. But they had a really good footfall, and it was consistently busy all day. Ben was a bit bemused by how many people actually came. I don't think he quite understood the appeal of a wool show. But he was really good with staying on the stall so that I could nip off for breaks now and again and go and fetch us cups of tea and things like that. And then we went and stayed with Ellie at her farm, which isn't too far away. So that was really nice, rather than having to come the whole way home that night. We had a nice evening, lots of giggles and chatting, and then came home the next day. So that is 2 of my busy events to do with wool through this year, and I've done both of them since I last talked to you. Crazy. But I was determined, I was absolutely determined. I was going to podcast before the end of October, and I was going to talk to you before the end of October, and I'm just squeaking it in under the wire. So what else did I want to talk to you about? Well, things that are coming up. I met a lady called Jane on the Yarn Crawl, and she is Gardening Witch on social media, and she is going to be at Festival next next weekend. Let me just check now. Hang on. It's the 12th of November. And it's in Hitchin in Hertfordshire. And she is going to be there as Gardening Witch Designs, and she'll be taking project bags, stitch markers, shawl pins, and one or two other knitting, crochet and sewing related bits and bobs. And she will also have some ceramic yarn bowls, again from Chris Greening Pottery. I do love a yarn bowl. So she asked if I wouldn't mind reading this out on the podcast, if I managed to podcast before. So, Festival is a yarn and fibre festival for lovers of textile art, sewing, knitting and crochet held in Hitchin in Hertfordshire in the UK. Now in its third year, it features around 50 independent craftspeople and designers whose wares include yarn, fibre, notions and patterns. As well as the exhibitors, there will be workshops, book signings, presentations, demos and fashion shows. This year's event will be held on Saturday the 12th of November from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the new atrium, North Herts College, Hitchin campus in Hertfordshire. Tickets cost £7.50 on the door, or can be booked in advance for £5 or £4 for OAPs and children under 10. For more details, including a list of exhibitors and to book tickets or places at the workshops, please visit www.festiwall.com. So, I will of course link to that in the show notes, but if you aren't going to be at the Geeky Puffin Knitpalooza, which is that weekend, and if you aren't going to come and see me at the vendor market on the Saturday, you know you want to. If you're anywhere near Farnham in Surrey on the 12th of November, then why don't you call in and visit me? But anyway, if you're not, if you are more in the Hertfordshire area or north of London, it would be easier to get to it, then go and give Festival a try and then let me know how it was, because obviously I can't be in two places at once, and it sounds like it would be quite a nice one to visit. But I will be from the 10th to the 13th of November at the Geeky Puffin Knitpalooza knitting retreat in Farnham in Surrey at the Mercure Bush Hotel. And on the Saturday the 12th, I will be exhibiting at the vendor market. I will put details in the show notes, but it is open, I believe it is open something like 12 till 4, 12 till 5 in the afternoon. Or you can buy a special ticket which lets you get in at 10 in the morning, so you get first glimpse at all of the goodies. And there are some really good people at this show. There will be, my memory's gone again. I will put names underneath. I'm going to be there. That's most important. I know Sarah's going to be there from Sarah's Texture Crafts. She's having a stall. Porpoise Fur and Yarn in the City. They do the stitch markers that are 3D printed stitch markers, and it's gone out my head again. Oh dear. Tara Swiger will be there, and I believe she'll be selling books at the event. Obviously Cece with Java Pearl Designs, she will be selling her patterns and her books. Then Sam from Knit Run Dig, who is another sponsor, she'll be there with her project bags. Who else is going to be there? Oh, botheration. I will link to it in the show notes. And if you're going to be in the area, or if you could be in the area, then have a look. But I think it'll be worth coming to. I think it's going to be a really nice little yarn show. So it'd be lovely to see you if you can make it. Then the following weekend, so I come home on the Sunday, and then on the Thursday I'm travelling up to Manchester, and I am going to study some business related things with Jolie from Jolie Creates and Tara Swiger, who will also both be at the Geeky Puffin Knitpalooza the week before. So I'm getting 2 woolly weekends, one after the other. It's going to be fantastic. And I'm really excited about that. And I think that's it for my events then for this year. I don't think I've got anything else planned. And it's application time of year now, so it's time. I've got 2 or possibly 3 applications to fill in for shows for next year, which I need to get in. I briefly thought, between you and me, about applying to vend at the Edinburgh Yarn Show. And then I decided that I wasn't confident enough. And I'd rather just go and look at it for the first year. So Zoe and I will be going up to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival in March. We've booked our plane, we've booked our hotel. We're really, really looking forward to it. We're going up for the whole 4 days. And I've never been to Edinburgh before either, so it's going to be brilliant to do some sightseeing. So if you are familiar with Edinburgh, then please come and tell me. Come over either on the Ravelry thread or leave me a comment below and tell me what I have to go and see in Edinburgh other than the Yarn Festival, because I will have 2 other days where I can do sightseeing-y things. Always just, and that's assuming that I spend the whole 2 days of the Yarn Festival at the Yarn Festival, which wouldn't really surprise me very much if I did, to be honest. But I'm starting to think about my knitting and what I want to knit before I go. So, I have the yarn for a barbel hat, and then once I've knitted the barbel hat, I might have enough yarn left to do either a short cowl or maybe some fingerless mittens, I don't know, but I might make it into a set just in case it's really cold next March. But what I wanted to ask for your advice with was this. Years ago, I really do mean years ago, I bought myself a couple of packs of Aran weight merino, which I think is actually closer to a chunky weight, but it was labelled as Aran. And I dyed it purple because it's me. And my plan at the time was that I was going to design this jacket, and I had this very elaborate mid-thigh length flared skirt jacket design in my head. I've never had time to do it, and this lovely yarn is sitting there not doing anything. This is just some of it, I've got loads more. So I thought this morning, all of a sudden, why don't I knit something beautiful with it to wear when I go to Scotland? This is me being very, very well prepared, planning 4 months in advance. Is it 4 months? It's only 4 months. It's only 4 months. Anyway, yes. So there's 6 skeins in this packet, and I think I've got another 6 in another packet. So I've got plenty. I could do almost any jumper, I think, for the amount of yardage that I've got, and probably have a matching hat, cowl and mittens, but there we go. So I prepared before I came to talk to you. I've chosen a couple of designs, and I thought I'd show them to you and see what you think, and that maybe you could either tell me what you think, or if you've got any ideas of your own. So Aran to chunky weight yarn. I could knit an Owl's jumper by Kate Davis, which I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's plain stocking stitch up to the yoke, and then there are owl cables all the way around the yoke, and you put buttons on for eyes or big beads or something for eyes. I've knitted one before, I really enjoyed it, but I chose a really bad yarn for it. It was like a marl look, and so you couldn't see the owl cables properly, but I think the solid purple would be much better for stitch definition and showing the owls better. So I could do that one, which would be suitable because Kate Davis will be at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. But then is that a little bit too sort of fangirly, you know, to be doing that? So I found a couple more, and this one is called Eased, and it's a bulky version of the pattern, and it looks to be mainly stocking stitch, but quite simple, with a sort of funnel neck with a little drawstring. But I thought, well, that's quite simple, and that would be probably quite quick to knit as well. So that's called Eased. And then the other one I found is actually a cardigan rather than a jumper. Come on. And that is called Washington Square Garden. I thought that was really nice, with the lace detail as well. Whoops. There we go. I really like that, and I think that looks as if it'd be nice and cosy. I would probably make it one of those lace repeats longer, just because I prefer it to be, I prefer jumpers not to sit right on the waistband of my trousers. I like them to just go over a little bit further. But yeah, so there are 3 ideas for jumpers: owls, Washington Square, cardigan, and eased. So if you've got any thoughts, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. I don't want anything which is massively flary. I don't want anything that is massively bulky. So no massive, huge cowl neck things. They don't suit me. I'm bulky enough in other places. I don't need to bulk out my neck and shoulders and face as well. But yeah, other than that, I'm reasonably open to suggestions. And I'm thinking also about, it was because I was thinking, should I do one of the Kate Davis designs that I really enjoy? I've done a paper dolls, I've done an owls, I could do another paper dolls because I've been thinking about doing a paper dolls jumper, but with not paper dolls around the yoke, doing a different design, but I'm not quite sure. I've seen a really, really cool Doctor Who version that somebody did, and I'd love to do that. So that's quite tempting to me as well. Anyway, I think I'm going to move on to works in progress. And because I showed you all that fabric and talked about my wearable toile earlier, I will show you first the shirt that I'm working on. And can you, yeah, here's the fabric. So far I've done the, is this called the yoke? I'm still learning with sewing terminology. I do know, oh, excuse the threads that are hanging off, but I do know that that is called a placket. And I now know how to sew a placket, which is awesome. But I've done the sleeves with the cuffs, although I haven't sewn in the ends yet. And I've sewn the sleeves onto the body of the shirt, and I've done that bit, insidey bit. So I think that next up, no, I don't even know what's next, but I know I've got to do the collar, the button band, and the hemming. But it's coming together quite nicely. I think it's going to be a bit snug. I think it's going to be looser around the top and then snugger around the bottom, which is good to know before I cut into my expensive fabric. So I will know to make it a little bit roomier from the waist down for the next one. But I think this will be a fun one, and Zoe and Ellie said it could be my work shirt, which I thought that'd be good. So that's my first work in progress, and as I said, next time I podcast I'll bring the pattern and show it to you, because I have actually got it all in a box and I was going to bring it all, and I just picked this up and left the rest upstairs in my office. So I'll show you that next time. I'm knitting another school cardigan for Erin using the Tallulah pattern, which Marie, who is Purple Snowdrop, gifted me last year. except that I'm not knitting the lace down the side. So you knit it from the top down, and I've done the sleeve caps, and I'm going down the body of the cardigan now. There's the underarm there. And I think what I might do a lace motif around the bottom with hearts. Although she does say she likes triangles as well, so maybe I'll do triangles, I don't know. But my original idea had been to put a heart on the wrist of her cardigan in lace, or a heart cable or something, because she had a little bit of a hard time settling into full-time school. She was finding the days very, very long, and she was struggling to get through the whole day. And she was getting to about lunchtime and then starting to cry and asking for me, and which was heartbreaking for a few weeks, especially with everything going on with Dad, and it was just so much going on in September. But she, I found a thing online that somebody said as a suggestion, just so they feel connected with you when they miss you. If you draw a heart on their wrist, just in biro or whatever, and then you let them draw a heart on your wrist, and then you say to them, well, look, every time I look at the heart on my wrist, I'm thinking about you, and I look at it all the time because it's right there. And whenever you're missing me, you just look at the heart on your wrist, and you know. Anyway, daft little thing, but it did help, and she was much happier after that. So I thought I might knit a little heart into her cardigan to sort of extend that, because it will be her school cardigan. So that's the reasoning behind that. The next thing I'm working on is a headband, and it's this plaited design, and I'll put the name of the pattern and the designer up on the screen, but I'm knitting it out of some leftover Pollux yarn which I dyed, which I had left after I made my socks. And can you see it's all cabled and plaited, and it is just going to be a basic headband, but I'm going to knit it until it's about twice as long as again as it is, and then I'm going to do just a ribbed bit to finish it off around the back, I think, because I think I'm probably going to run out of patience with all these cables, but I might not. I might manage to keep going and then sew it and have a whole circle of it. But I'm quite enjoying how it's plaiting up. I'm liking that. Especially it's making me think of the plaits that Erin's having me do for her hair. I've recently learned how to do French plaits, French braids I think call them in other parts of the world. I've never been able to do them on my own hair, even when I had, obviously not now, but when I had long hair I couldn't do them. But I've finally figured it out, and she does sit still long enough for me to do it, so almost every day now we have, Mummy, can I have a posh plait for school please? So, and because she can't see the back of her hair and we don't have any mirrors that would show her the back of her hair, I have to take a picture every morning to show her what her hair looks like, so I can actually show you that this was today's plait. I'm quite proud of this. I put it up as one of my stories on Instagram. But yeah, 2 French plaits down to 1 central plait. And, oh, that's her Halloween picture. And that was the front of her hair, so I had it coming from, she's got a bit of a side parting going on like me, and I had the plait coming from here and all the way around. So she was highly delighted with that. But that headband makes me think of that a little bit as well, with all the French plaits. So that's cool. I have worked on my sock yarn blanket a bit, but I've left it in the other room because I knew that I'd have loads to talk about without even showing you that, so I can save that for next time. I'm working on a sock design, and I'm not going to show it to you, even though it's really simple. But I can show you the yarn, and it is my own hand-dyed yarn, and it's called Cozy and Warm. And I believe there's still some in the shop, and it's all these lovely reds and plums, and it does make me think of just being cosy and warm in the winter, and that's why it was named that way. So I will show you more of that design when I've knitted it up and written up the pattern as well, and maybe I'll be after a couple of test knitters for that. I have a bit of paranoia with designs, in case I've inadvertently done something that somebody else has done. So I need to knit that up and then show a few people and say, have you seen something like this? Have I accidentally copied somebody? Because I don't want to do that. You need to reassure me now. So that, yeah, that'll be fun. I'm going to be really fed up if I knit this pair of socks, which is taking forever because I'm not in a sock frame of mind at the moment. I'm going to be really fed up if I knit them all up and then somebody goes, oh yeah, that's such and such's pattern. That's really going to annoy me. However, so that's all the works in progress I've brought to show you at the moment. I've got a couple more acquisitions to show you. Knit Picks sent me an email and said that they were discontinuing Felici yarn. So I went and bought some more. I bought, are they the same? No, they're not. I must have put them, oh yes they are, they're just wound differently. I bought these, which are Dark Side. And I bought Rainbow. And they were the two that I was umming and ahhing over the first time that I went and bought some Knit Picks Felici. So I was quite pleased to get those. And because they've got a sale on books at the same time, I picked up this one about cast on and bind offs because it looked interesting, and it's got 54 step-by-step methods, and it's on a ring binder as well, so it's easy to open it up and lay it flat on the page that you need. From the same series I've got increases and decreases, so that'll be interesting to see how many I've not come across before. I think I've come across most techniques. Whether I actually can do them or not is a whole other thing. But the other thing I bought is this, Knitlandia, and I've heard a lot of people saying that this is a really good book. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I might take this with me when I go away. This might be my my bedtime reading. So, and I follow Clara Parks on Twitter, and as I said, I've heard quite a few people talking about the book and how much they've enjoyed it. So yeah, so that was good. I was glad to get that. Another thing that I bought, which I wanted to show you, I treated myself to the Shetland Wool Week Annual, Volume 2. And it was a lovely read. I took it, so my younger son does tennis lessons 3 times a week, and 2 of those times I sit for the 2 hours that he's having his tennis lesson, either in the car if it's warm enough, or I'll go and sit in a cafe if it's not. And I usually take something with me to read or knit or some work to do if I've got some paperwork. And I took this with me and read it on one of those, and it was really lovely. And they've got the, oops, don't want to drop it, they've got the Crofthuse hat pattern in there, which was the Shetland Wool Week pattern this week. But also they've got Crofthuse mitts. So I won't show you the actual pattern, but I can show you the picture. And I believe, is there a cowl? No. I think I might have imagined that. But yeah, the mitts as well. So, and then there are lots of other lovely patterns. There's a lovely shawl designed by Donna Smith, who did the barbel hat last year when she was the patron. I think that's really beautiful. So, and it looks as if quite a lot of it would be quite straightforward to knit as well, because it's this garter stitch section and then the shells at the bottom. So I think I could enjoy that. Obviously there's quite a lot of colour work in there, which you'd expect, and you'd be disappointed if there wasn't, wouldn't you, in a Shetland Wool Week book. And then lots of interviews with various people, and some informative essays. But yeah, it's something, it's not like a normal magazine, a knitting magazine where you might read it and toss it. This is definitely something that will be staying on my bookshelf in my office, and I'll be picking up and looking at from time to time. And finally, I was given this, which really made me smile, because I think I mentioned I had a bit of a hard time with my brain not working properly in September and October, early October. Much better now. But Zoe of the Pins and Needles podcast, because you have to do that when you're talking about podcaster, don't you? Zoe of the wonderful Pins and Needles podcast, go and check her out, and if you're not subscribed, you really, really should. And you should be a member of her Ravelry group as well. Bought me this. It's a journal, and it says, "I'm doing my best, a journal in which to prove that despite any indications to the contrary, I am constantly working on myself and trying to become the very best me, even though it's a much slower and harder process than Oprah and Deepak would have me believe. And while I would sometimes prefer just to swallow a pill or have a personality transplant, I will keep plugging away at this infernal self-improvement thing until I've done so well I can come back in my next life as a golden retriever." I think that's perfect. And it made me laugh. And it made me smile. And it's making me smile now. And it's just fantastic. And it's a journal type, not a diary. So you've got the space to put down the date and then an inspirational quote every day. And then you can write about what you've achieved. And I love this at the bottom, look, today's personal outlook. So the glass is full, the glass is half full, the glass is empty, the glass is broken. I love that. Thank you again, Zoe. That it's on my desk. I haven't written in it yet because I don't want to really mark it, but I look at it and it makes me smile. Well, I've been talking to you for nearly an hour, waffling on about this and that, and there's not really anything else about me that I wanted to say. As I've said, there's a Ravelry group for the podcast and for my shop, and I'd love it if you'd come and say hello. I will be, as I've said, going to the Geeky Puffin Knitpalooza in a couple of weeks. Well, it's not a couple of weeks now, it's a week and a half. So if you're going to be in the area and you can make it to the vendor market, then let me know you're going to come, or that you might come, and come and say hello. That'd be great to see you. And I believe there are still a couple of spots left on the actual retreat if it's something that you might be interested in. There are some lovely classes on the retreat, so definitely go and look that up with the link in the show notes. I will have lots of shop news if I manage to podcast straight after the knitting retreat and before I go to Manchester, which is what I'm hoping, because I'm currently in the process of making about 30 bags. I've got a dozen skeins of self-striping yarn. Would you like to see one? Well, more than one. I've got 3 wound up. Would you like to see? Quite pleased. Hang on, because I've been working on this desk for the last week. On this table, it's our dining table, and it's just covered in stuff. But this is one, so I've wound it so you can see the stripes there. And that is going to be called Rose Garden. And then I've done one in purple and lilac and silver. And I've done the colourway that I've got in the shop called Wild Style. I've done as a self-striping. So that's blue and black and bright fuchsia pink. I don't think they'll be very wide stripes because it's not a hugely long skein. It's a 6 metre skein, and I mean I've done some before that have been up to about 14 metres, so it's not going to be a massively long colour repeat. But they will be self-striping, and I think that they're fun. And I will be taking them with me to the Geeky Puffin Knitpalooza, but if I bring any back, they'll be up in the shop hopefully the following week. Well, all that remains really is for me to say thank you ever so much for coming and watching me. Please, if you enjoyed the video and you really managed to get through all of my waffling. I'd love it if you give me a thumbs up underneath, which helps other people to find a podcast. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I'm within spitting distance of 2,000 followers on Instagram, and there will be a giveaway of some sort when I get to that milestone. So if you're not following me on Instagram, it's probably worth your while if you do, because I can put together a nice prize package. Just saying. But I'll look forward to speaking to you much sooner than the last time I did. It will be less than 2 months before I speak to you again. And I hope that you are all keeping well and that you're having lots of lovely crafting time. And I will be back soon. So take care of yourselves and bye-bye.